everyone, welcome back. This is James, The Path to Maturity. I'm Tony Nobley Jr. here with Three Nail Studios as we continue on with episode 4, Useless Faith. Now, as we jump into what James was saying, remember, please go through the previous 3 episodes and check it out so you have a better context of what's going on. But real quick recap, James is saying this is the path to being a spiritually mature person. It involves a selfless mentality, a mentality that doesn't value power, prestige the way the world does, one that doesn't look at people and put a dollar sign on them. And as we continue on with this, James has more to say. Check it out. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose if a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm, and be well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. You believe that there is one God. Good, even the demons believe that and shudder. You foolish person, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. And the scripture was fulfilled that says Abraham believed God and was credited him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend. You see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone. In the same way, was not even Rahab, the prostitute, considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different location? As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. Faith is such an important word. It's such an important concept. The faith that James is talking about here is not just a belief. It's meant to be something that is as critical to your identity as anything. It's the thing that centers who you are, and everything about your life is affected by it. Now, a lot of times we believe certain things, but many times our faith is not at the level of where it's the first filter. And a spiritually mature person has to know that their faith is in front of everything. Now, also this idea of deeds, it literally means to work, right? When we think of works, we think of action, and that's exactly what he's talking about. It's important because by itself is an example of where interpretation gets tricky. Deeds is a simple one-to-one, but by itself is actually according to itself. It's probably the better translation for that. Now, this may not seem like a big change, but faith by itself without works is dead. It's very different than faith without works is dead according to itself. What's that difference? It speaks to the nature of faith belief. The very nature of faith requires action. Faith is action. It's not that faith plus works equals a live faith. It's that faith without works is a dead faith. It's just like if you took oxygen and all the various gases that I need to breathe out of my body, I won't survive. It doesn't mean that me plus that equals life. It means that together it creates something alive. And it's only alive if those two things are present. Now, finally, I want to talk about this idea of uselessness and righteousness. Now, useless, the word that is used here, it literally means it has no purpose. It's not that, oh, well, it's not as good or it's not as great. It means, dude, this is broken. It has no reason for existing. Contrast that with righteousness. This idea of being righteous, we often think of as a very religious person. But instead, I want you to think about it as something that is passing the test. Remember earlier that we talked in episode 1, if you've seen that, where there's endurance. And in fact, if you actually go back and check out David Nieve's wonderful series on Ecclesiastes, he talks about this meaningless.
Everything is meaningless.
All things are meaningless. But as you pass the test and understand that God is important, you begin to understand what has meaning. This is a similar thing to what James is talking about here. The uselessness of a dead faith is contrasted with passing this test of righteousness. It doesn't mean that you're more religious or less religious. It means that you have the correct mentality, that you are taking your faith and you're living it out rather than being useless and worthless and broken, that you're taking it and putting it into the world. That's what it takes to pass the test. Now, this idea of a useless faith is really important. James is telling us that as a Christian, we need a faith that is lived out. We don't need superhuman skill. In fact, he gives us 2 perfect examples in this chapter and one in the previous section, helping out those who need it, the disassociated from society, the ones that are on the outcast, on the fringe. But then also he gives us Abraham, who's willing to put everything that was so important to him, his son, his legacy, his life, on the line. And Rahab, someone who wasn't even really a believer, but knew who God was and put that into action. See, James is telling us he isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for someone who's willing to listen to what God's saying and put it into action. So this is the question you have to have today. As I go through what I'm doing in my life, is my faith being lived out or is it useless? We hope you enjoyed this. Please check out our next episode. We've got more content coming. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We have more content that we'd love for you to watch. Also, it really helps us if you can like and leave some comments for us. It just helps us expand knowing what we want to put out next, and also lets us know where you're at and how we can connect with you. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next episode.